All right. Hello, everyone. It's so good to see you all after a long time. And welcome to today's session for the Toronto Admin Group. The first 5 features to check in a new client's org by none other than our Kathy Waterworth. Thank you so much for joining us today. A huge thank you to each one of you for being here on your Wednesday evening during this busy week, right before the long weekend. So thank you so much for taking time to join us today. And thank you so much, Kathy, for doing this session for our group today. A brief introduction. Most of you know us. Prashant and I are the group leaders of the Toronto Admin Group. If you don't know us, now you know us. And you can reach out to us if you have any feedback on the sessions. If you would like to hear something new in the group or anything that you would like to talk about, you can reach out to us here. And Prashant will be dropping the group as well as the collaboration channel links to the chat. And you can pick that up in case you have not joined the group. Please join us so that you know what the upcoming events are and also get access to the recordings on the YouTube, as well as get to collaborate with the other admins in the Toronto area. Oh, and most of you would have seen this in our social media. We have something really exciting coming up after today's session as well. So it's going to be an in-person event, which will be launched tomorrow. The event would be launched tomorrow at 5 p.m. EST. So if you are already part of our group, you should be able to see the event getting published right there. And you should also get email notification if you've subscribed to it. So a couple of things here. This is going to be an in-person event with a limited capacity. What that means is not everybody will be able to attend. With that said, if you're choosing to RSVP and join us, please ensure that you are able to attend. If in case you feel like you might not be able to make it for the in-person event, we request you not to RSVP so that others get a chance to attend the event. And a special thanks to Slalom for hosting us today with the Zoom so that we're able to make this virtual event possible. And a couple of or a few housekeeping rules here before we get started, and I pass it over to Kathy for the session. Turn on your camera if you feel it's appropriate. Mute your mics unless otherwise you're advised, or unless you have any questions that you want to ask Kathy or at the networking at the right end of the event. Post your questions in the chat window. Prashant will be monitoring the chat, and we will be able to bring that up to Kathy at the end of the session. You can also unmute and ask your questions when we come to the Q&A portion of the session. Be engaging, ask questions, participate, network. As always, feel free to use the chat window to introduce yourselves, share your profiles with others if you would like to do so, and share anything that's exciting that's going on. And be polite and respectful. Again, I would like to introduce Kathy Waterworth to you all. Most of you already know her. She's an incredible trailblazer. She's an owner at Backwater Cloud Consulting and also a leader at York Simcoe Salesforce Saturday Group, as well as the New Market Architect Group. She wears multiple hats and she does phenomenal in every single one of them. She is also a fellow board member along with me at Amplify, and she's also a Rad Women coach. She has plenty of certifications. Kathy is at 17, if I'm saying that right. 17 Salesforce certifications as well. So we are so glad that she could join us today and share her knowledge with this group. Thank you so much, Kathy. And without much ado, I'll pass it over to you for the session.
Okay, thank you, Sudha and Prashant for inviting me. Ready. Sorry, get the sharing going here. And there we go. Okay. So welcome everybody, and thank you for signing up and coming to hear this. I just recently presented this in London, so hopefully you find it as informative. There, you can see some of my connection links at the bottom. Don't worry about it. I do have some QR codes at the end to help you connect even further later, so don't worry about grabbing it now if you don't already know it. And since Sudha sort of pretty much covered everything that's on this slide, the only thing I'll add is actually I after watching my husband in the ecosystem for about 4 years. I started learning on Trailhead and then took about another 2 years before I decided to turn Salesforce into a career. And now I work as a virtual system administrator for an American-based ISV and work mostly with various nonprofit clients as their admin support for those who have either strong system admins or just need the additional knowledge from a more experienced system admin. And you already heard about me leading the groups, but I also have 2 adult children and 2 cats. And I wish I had an empty nest, but unfortunately, the second child is moving back home at the end of the year. So that should be interesting. But anyways, and I want to thank you, Sudha and Prashant, again for inviting me to join you today. It's always good to share knowledge. And I also encourage everybody else, if you have something you want to share either with this group or with any of the groups, please reach out. I'm always looking for speakers for my various groups. So, and if you're would like to sort of at one point talk at a dreaming event, starting off at the local user groups is a good way to start and get some practice in, or preview something you will be sharing at another event. So let me start my topic off by saying there isn't one single correct answer. And it's, I even went to, the latest source for all knowledge, ChatGPT, and asked various people, and everybody came back with a different answer. So much so that I ended up with this lovely little word cloud. And if you work either as a consultant or like me as a virtual system administrator or provider of managed services, some people call it that, you end up going into different orgs at different times. Sometimes you're just bouncing in and out of orgs for short periods of time, or you're maybe even joining a company as a new system admin. So, there are a lot of things, there are a lot of balls in the air all the time. What can you take a look at to help you, give you some idea what the status is of a particular org, or, how do they use it, or what things should you look out for? So let's, even though this is a, very wordy word cloud, let's see what some of the top ones are. So usually I personally like to start off with the company info. This is where you can learn about the org. You can see what clouds they have, what licenses they have, and how many they use. What is their storage size? Are they maxing out on storage? And what are the expiry dates? And yes, I've seen it where orgs have gotten suspended because they didn't realize they have an expiry date to renew their org licenses. And next thing they know, they were locked out of their orgs. So sometimes, even if you think they know when it is, they may not. Then I usually like to go and take a look at the users of their profiles and how many active users they have. And my favorite one, especially in the nonprofit world, is how many people have the system admin profile. By show of hands, has anybody gone into an org where everybody is a system admin? Let's see it. I can't see all the hands, but I've seen at least one. And, if everybody's a system admin and you have only 2 or 3 users, maybe not a huge deal. But if you have 20 people and they're all system admins, you might want to have a chat with these people. You can also take a look at who and who is not logging in, or when somebody else was logging in. if somebody hasn't logged in over a year, why are they using up a license if they could free it up for another use? Another thing to keep track of is a lot of orgs, especially in the nonprofit, they get really worried about that they have to fill in the role hierarchy or the role on a user, but they don't necessarily use the role hierarchy. So even though that may be filled in, check to see if they are using role hierarchy, because that will come in handy to know when you go to the next setting, which is your security settings. Obviously, you look at org-wide defaults, which of course is not under anything called org-wide defaults. It's under sharing settings. You can also take a look at their profiles. How many do they have? How are they being used? How many custom ones do they have? Now, as we switch towards the new minimum access profile and using permission sets and permission set groups, this will eventually start sort of getting less and less to worry about. But if you're going to be the person who's working on this to switch, then, obviously you'll need to take a look and work on that. And again, with permission sets, how many permission sets do they have, and how are they organized? Again, this is going to become a little bit more of a hot topic as you start to try to organize permission sets. There have been a few people who are going around, especially Cheryl Feldman, and she's the big evangelist for this. Make sure to follow up with what she's presenting on these, so you have a better idea on how to move forward with your permission sets. And then see with all your users that you have in the org, do they have the right access? Are there people who are seeing things they don't need to? Are there people who should see things who don't have access? So it's always a good idea to check all that as well. And then the apps. And how did that change color? Okay, sorry, I just noticed something on my slide changed color. But when you look at apps, and we're talking about the ones that are installed, not the ones people have built, you need to see what they have. Do they have apps that expired 10 years ago? I've seen it. It does happen. Are they using the apps they have installed? If not, why do they still have them? And who's using all the apps? Again, are the right people, do the right people have access to the apps that they need? Are there apps that they should probably be using? Need to consider that as well. And then once you've gone through that, you can also take a look at, because it's just called app, if you look into App Builder, do they have a lot of specialized apps for their different users, so they have different views of the objects that they are using? And then we could get into looking at the objects that they have. A lot of orgs, if they have managed packages, they'll have a lot of custom objects that go along with the managed packages. That's always a good thing to know. What about other custom objects do they have? Do they have custom objects that are mimicking or duplicating what a standard object would do? And if so, why do they do that? How are all these objects, especially the custom ones, interacting with the current standard objects or the objects in the different managed packages? And they may have a bunch of custom objects, but are they actually being used? Or is it some legacy, or somebody had an idea to try this out and they put it into production instead of a sandbox and just never end up using it? And don't forget to just because they're standard, check your standard objects too, because they may be contain a lot of custom fields that have been created that may have the same thing, that you have 3 fields that are all doing the exact same thing. Well, why do they have 3 fields? Is there some way that this can be managed? So, some of the tools that we can use for this are, and it's actually kind of funny because recently, if you're logging into an org, you may have seen some of these pop up for spring cleaning in an org, but there's the health check, which is always a good way to take an overall look at security levels and, like password expiry, login issues, things that will keep your org secure from that standpoint. So make a point of, if you don't look at it when you first get there, but it's also something you should probably check every month or at least every quarter if you can. Schema builder. Personally, schema builder is not, some people love schema builder. I'm not one of the people who love schema builder, but it does come in handy to help see the relationships between different objects, especially if you just choose the specific objects that you want to see how they're related. It's, take a look at it. You can see what's in there. Personally, I probably would need a screen the size of a wall in, some office to be able to see it all properly. Because I would love to see the whole thing on one page, but obviously you cannot get a screen that big. But, use it and take a look, and then you could, and some people find it's an easier way to create objects. I have never figured that out, so don't feel bad if you don't like it either. But if you do, hey, great, good for you. Another thing along the lines of health check is a Salesforce optimizer. Again, it's a good way to sort of, it tells you things like profiles aren't being used, or people aren't logging in, or people aren't set up properly. This is another one that you should check out when you get there, and probably should run at least once a quarter, if not more often, just to keep on top of different things that may come up in the org that you have. Setup Audit Trail is actually one of my favorite tools, if I'm honest. Especially since I'm not in all these orgs every single day. And when something goes wrong and they're like going, oh, I don't know what I did, this isn't working, and it was working like the previous month, I tend to go into Setup Audit Trail to see what did somebody change, or has there been an update that has caused something to fail. But as a good way to do it is run it once if you're first there, and then you can, it keeps 6 months worth of data when you download it. So whenever you rerun it, you can at least compare it to the previous one, or at least just take a look at whatever has been changed since the last time you ran it. I also find this useful when I'm doing moving things between sandboxes. And this was before DevOps. Yes, DevOps will work much better than this, but I also use it as a way to track what did I change in the sandbox if I've forgotten, just to make sure I've gotten everything. So I make sure it gets moved over into production and I don't miss anything. And the next two are going to, again, come in handy with the new changes to profiles and permissions is Perm Comparator, which is on Heroku. It runs outside of the org, so you can sign in, but it's in a different tab and it's not directly in an org you have. Whereas user access and permission assistance is an App Exchange product that you install directly into an org. And you could use both of those to compare. It's not just permissions, but you can compare permission sets against user access, users against against profiles, and you could see who has what permissions and see where sometimes if somebody can see something the other person can't. It also helps you figure out what you what they need to take a look at or what needs to be changed to give people more access. So that's some extras that, probably at least one or two people probably were thinking, but what about, obviously 5 does not cover everything that you should take a look at in an org. So some of the things to look at are, of course, your automations, how many flows do they have? What kind of process builders do they have? They are probably, unless they've switched it all already, they probably still have workflow rules and email alerts that are active. And also, if you can read them, take a look at the triggers. I just had one instance where a recently created automations on an opportunity had not just 4 or 5 flows that run on opportunities. It also had at least one process builder and a trigger. And they were all working as we were trying to make some changes to their opportunities. They were all working against each other. So, do take a look at them. You never know what you may come up with. Again, with process builders and workflow rules being migrated into flows, you'll have less to look at, but still just make sure what's there is working and what isn't working, and to make sure and what can be easily moved over to flow. Get it done as quickly as possible. Sandboxes. A lot of people, and especially in some nonprofits, some of them may have no idea what a sandbox is. And if you ask them what a sandbox is, they'll go, what? But, as an admin or as a consultant, you should know what sandboxes they have, how many do they have, and what types they're using. And especially if you're going to be using one of them to create something new, when was the last refresh? And, if a sandbox is 2 years old, you can go and build in there, but will it be as effective? Probably not, because I'm sure a lot of things have happened in production since the sandbox was refreshed 2 years ago. Probably also indicates that any changes that were made were probably made directly in production, but we won't go there. And lastly, in the honorable mention is the data quality. And, how complete is their data? And yes, I do switch back from data and data all the time, so please excuse that. But check the completeness. Do they have contact records that are missing a lot of fields that they need to use? Do the accounts have contact information? How accurate is the information? Are the phone numbers missing digits? It should have, typically, like in the Toronto area, they should have 10, but if they only have 8, what numbers are missing? And which would lead into how reliable is the information that they have? What can they do to what can you do to add to it to make it more reliable? As in, how much more can be automated so there's less human error when entering new or creating new records. And a few things you should remember, and apparently my slides did not like changing. I apologize for the overlap here. When you are doing, going through these orgs, make sure to talk to the users. The users are the ones who will tell you if something's wrong, but also talk to the stakeholders. They will give you whatever insight you need. They'll tell you what's wrong, what needs to be changed, what you should know, or if they may not even know they have a problem, and you can get their feedback on all this. Make a plan. As you can see, even just going through this, you can, start looking at one thing, you go, oh, that makes me think of something else, and end up going down a rabbit hole. So take a systematic approach, make a list for yourself, and if it helps you keep on track, so you do things one at a time instead of jumping all over the org, because you could end up, doing all sorts of things, and then you miss something that may be important. And then also try to get access to any previous documentation, again, to help you understand why they did certain things to customize. Or, for example, why did they create the 3 different things on opportunities when, especially the process builder was only created in November of last year, which was long after they decided the end of life. And it's like, why did they create a process builder at this point? I don't know, but there was no documentation to explain that. So, but if you can get it, great. And remember for yourself, as you create these new things, make sure to provide documentation that explains if you do something that's sort of out of the ordinary, explain why you did it. You may be around for a while, but you may be only around for a couple of months. So somebody may be interested to know why you did something down the road. So let's recap. Just make sure to look at your company info, the users and their profiles, the security settings, your apps and their setup, and your data model, and then use the health check, optimizer, audit trail, and profile and permission comparators to help you get through all of these and to find out if there are any issues with your org. And as I said, there's a bunch of QR codes here. If you want to connect with me, my Trailblazer Me and Twitter handles on the left. If you are interested in either the New Market Architect Group or the York Simcoe Salesforce Saturday, both of them run virtually most of the time. So you're welcome to join in if you're interested. You can find out, those are the Trailblazer Community Group QR codes, so you can find out the information on how to sign up for the various meetings at those. And I'll leave that up while we do Q&A in case anybody's interested. And so, Prashant, do we have any questions?
We got some good feedback on the session. I haven't seen any questions, but if anybody has, feel free to unmute and can ask them directly.
Or something to add. This is my experience. I'm sure other people have had different experiences too, so please feel free to share that as well.
I had a question, Kathy, if you don't mind, and maybe one again group as well. Anything interesting, like really shocking, which you've seen in your experience as you've been doing this? Like, oh man, I should not have been doing this. So any
the 20 system admins in one org?
That was real.
Oh, by the way, and there were 20 licenses. It's like,
Uh,
oh, okay. Or people who insist on having system admin permission or profile because, it's the boss,
yeah.
but the boss has no clue about Salesforce.
Yeah.
And you're like, I like to use the analogy. I don't know if it's a good one, but I like to use it. It's like the CEO of an airline doesn't necessarily is unless they are a pilot, is not necessarily a pilot. So they don't really need the keys to the plane, right? Because you don't want the CEO flying a plane if they have no clue how to do it. And I do find that a lot of them, if they most of them have role hierarchy or roles filled in. And again, it's all very stuck to what a company hierarchy is, as opposed to they don't understand what a role hierarchy is. It's not turned on. So not a big deal, but they're very big on who has the CEO title, and their titles are very much tied to what their actual company roles are.
Oh,
And the one, I had one, she was doing every change in production, but really didn't know Salesforce that well. And it was like, oh, please stop. Please don't do that. It's like, here's the sandbox, mess it up in there, do it all in there. And then when it's ready to be moved, then we could talk about moving it or allowing her to rebuild it in the production. But it was really messing up their Salesforce. They're like going, we don't understand why it's getting all messed up. So
oh.
those were probably and this process builder, I'm sorry, I just finally finished this project because that process builder caused so much problems that it's now a flow. But it's like, that was probably why did somebody do that? But
It's I don't know whether I should say it's great to hear or it's amusing to hear, but it's yeah, you see everything, right? After a point.
yes, you do. And you're right. I mean, it's funny when you talk about it like this, but when you're going through it, it's very frustrating.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Anybody else has seen that or looked at talks where they've had? I saw a few hands raised up when they saw when you talked about have you seen everybody is sysadmin? So any other shockers or any questions for Kathy?
Hey, hi everyone. Yeah, of course. With this side, I have seen this a lot. I work with very small organizations, pretty small Salesforce orgs, 20 people, 30 people, 60 people. Most of them are system admins, no hierarchy setup. So the main challenge is, of course, getting into that system. And of course, there is already a data setup there. Now you have to define a role hierarchy. Pretty challenging. So kind of,
Yeah.
I get to understand what Kathy is talking about.
Yeah, I've heard some people get around that by they go in, they clone the system admin profile, but the clone
All the
does not.
permissions.
Yeah, like all the system permissions are basically removed, and they just reassign that. So these people think they have system admin, but they don't really have anything that they can really hurt in the org. Again, this hopefully will become less of an issue with the new profile and permission setup that is coming down the pipe.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things I've seen is sometimes on the reporting side, there would be like hundreds of reports created when you could have just created like a few and just changed the filters or just made it dynamic. And we're like, oh, why did you do that? You're just making it so messy for yourself.
Yep. Or oh, what did I see? Oh, I saw this not that long ago in one org that somebody created a list view to search for somebody. That was it. It was the the filter was to search for one person in a list view. And it was like, I was thinking, why? Like, there's a search bar. Type the name in at the top. But you're right, with the reports, I do like the new feature in reports that if you create a new report and you put a certain type in, it will actually tell you what reports already exist. So you can take a look at those and check them out, see if they work first. And even if you just need it sometimes if you just need something immediate, change the filter for what you immediately need, change it back to what it was, and you don't need to create a new report. You just get the info you need right there and then, and you don't need to create a new report for it. So,
Very true.
okay.
Any other questions, comments, thoughts?
I just want to understand how the schema helps in the health check. Like,
How the schema helps in the health check?
yes.
The schema, no, the schema is more, helps you just see the relationships between objects. It doesn't necessarily, I mean, the health check may mention the schema or it may mention the objects, but direct correlation, not really. It's just more a way to just see how the objects all relate to each other.
Yeah, it's a good visualization tool. I think, like Kathy said, it's probably not something which everyone immediately takes a liking to, because just by default,
Forever.
there's so many so many objects to choose. So
Yeah.
but yeah, it definitely helps a bit more from a visualization perspective. How are they all connected? And
Yeah.
There are, I
And-
know there are folks who do the shortcut of creating an object there, though it's not that popular.
And
I-
that is
Yeah, I don't understand it, but then again, I never understood. I learned all on Lightning, so to me, everything in Classic is like, what? Why do I have to be in Classic? If something throws me into Classic, it's like, I'm so confused. Where do I find this? Now, mind you, when I first started, my husband kept asking me about Lightning questions while I asked him about Classic questions because he didn't understand Lightning at all until they switched. So it was like, oh, okay. So, everyone has something different that they like or dislike. But I will say, I mean, as much as I dislike Schema Builder, at least you can go through, clear it all out and select the specific objects that you just want to see if there's a relationship. I think there was once an object I was trying to go, is this related to all these, or is there any connection to it to all these other objects? And it turns out it was all by itself. So it was like, oh, okay. But it at least was a lot faster to answer the question than going through each one of the objects in Object Manager and taking a look at all the fields and, oh, is there a connection here? So it does make it easier.
And the funny thing, like when you were talking about Lightning and Classic, even today I have seen some customers using Classic, and so
Mhm.
that's almost falls like your number 6 item. Why are you still in Classic and not on Lightning, if not among the top 5? So that becomes the top.
Well, yeah, when you work with smaller nonprofits, like I'm lucky. I rarely have an org that has more than 10 users. So they're really, really small. They may have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of records, as I found out today. But yeah, their org themselves are fairly small. And some of them just don't want to learn. They don't want to make the switch to Lightning. They, flat out refuse to learn it. They, you try to give them all the trailheads and all the backup to help them learn, tell them how much this will help them, and they just refuse. And then you can only argue so much with them. Well, you don't argue with them at all, but you can, try to explain how it will help them only so much. And if they refuse to do it, they just won't do it. So you just go, okay, fine, and just, let them go at it. So, well, thank you again very much for allowing me to speak, and I will stop sharing and hand it back.
Once
you.
more. Yeah, no, thank you, Kathy. This was, I think the way you started off sort of summed it all, because Salesforce there is a lot, right? There's a lot of things going on there, even for someone who's not using the system as much. And your approach to how do you just stick to the fundamentals? Have you got your basics right? And then start from there, and really highlighting what are the key things to start with, the top 5. And I think that was really one. Of course, it shows your experience in this area, but also especially for our community here, especially those who are either starting off on their journey or doing a similar role, or have being sort of overwhelmed with the information they receive. It's an amazing guidance. So huge thank you, both from Sudha and my side, and of course from everybody here. So really appreciate you not just sort of consolidating your knowledge and inputs, but sharing with us in such a concise and simple manner. So thank you.
Welcome.
Awesome. I do want to just again leave it open for anyone to sort of share any thoughts. But before that, just recap on announcement we did just as at the beginning of this event as well, for anyone who joined a little late. We are announcing an in-person event tomorrow at 5 p.m. The announcement is tomorrow. The event will be at a subsequent date, but keep an eye out for the event launch. It is an in-person event with limited capacity. So obviously we want those who can really attend to sign up. So just be respectful in case you feel, oh, I don't think I'll be able to make it. So just don't RSVP, or we're trying to see if we can do hybrid, but at right now it's at in-person. So just be mindful of that, but keep your eye out. We have seen in the past that the slots get filled up very quickly. So we're very excited about this. We'll be announcing it tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern time. With that, again, huge thank you, and want to take a few minutes if anybody wants to share anything, any feedback, or any questions, or anything you want to do. This is a safe space for all of us to learn and share and grow. So yeah, feel free to come off mute and ask or say or share your thoughts. Now, I do want to say, Kathy, you're getting a lot of thanks in the chat. So yeah, I'm really happy to see, even though not everybody said it, but there's a lot of compliments flowing through the chat message here. So.
And thank you. Well, thank you everybody for attending. That, you never know when you're going to give a presentation how many people will show up. So it's nice to see a large crowd. So thank you very much. And I hope that you can at least find 1 or 2 points that were helpful in your journeys.
And of course, for those who could not join, we are going to upload this to our YouTube channel, so it's there for posterity, and we're not going to miss that. But yeah, thank you. If there is nothing else, we can wrap up a little early and give everybody a little bit of time back in their evenings. I know everybody's taken time off again from their work and busy day, middle of the week. So if there's nothing else, we can probably wrap up. And thank you so much. Awesome.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. I think everybody is quiet. It's midweek and everyone is busy and tired and just want to go grab a cup of coffee and relax on your couch. We understand.
Or get ready for the long weekend. They're probably all like going, okay,
True.
Thursday, let's get out of here.
Or they're thinking, Kathy, oh, what is wrong with my org? Now I know where I should start.
Yeah, you probably made everyone think that way, Kathy.
Sorry.
Awesome. Thank
No,
you.
but this was incredibly helpful session, Kathy. And as everyone's sentiment on the chat, it's such a lovely session, very informative. And you made it seem very simple too. So it's making that complex topic, breaking them into simple makes the magic happen. So thank you so much for doing that. One last call for anyone who wants to come out of mute and
yeah, I mean, I would like
Please.
to share that, Kathy sounded like it's a cakewalk, but I'm sure it's not a cakewalk. There is so
No.
much into it, and we have to dig in deep in the weeds So I'm sure there's a lot to look forward to, but thank you, Kathy and team, for amazing session. This is my first session that I'm joining to this group, and it's been really, really insightful. So thank you very much.
Well, glad I could help. And you're right, it's definitely not a cakewalk.
Yeah.
I tried to make it very simple and, but it is simple if you take it methodically to take a look. All the info, that's another story. That can get very complicated very quickly, but if you take it as a methodical thing, you should be able to get through it. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Any questions? Don't want to put anyone on the spot. I'm just asking before we wrap up. Any questions?
We
Anything
need
else
more
you'd like to
frequent
say?
session like this.
Sorry.
We need more frequent session like this. Like this was.
Yeah,
very helpful.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, we'll definitely be planning some combination of in-person and virtual events. So yeah, hopefully keep an eye tomorrow for our in-person event. It will be so lovely to meet many of you there. Whoever is able to join us, that will be wonderful. But otherwise, we'll keep doing some virtual sessions too, so we're able to get a larger audience. It doesn't get limited by capacity. We can cater to more people when it's virtual. So you'll definitely see a combination of both. But if you have any topics that you're looking to hear from, from us, or anything else that you would like to see in the group happening, please feel free to reach out to Prashant or myself. And if you have anything else for Kathy, for her Saturday group or the architect group, all the leaders, we're all willing to help in any way possible. And we're all learning together with you. So feel free to share any topics or any insights that you have as well. We're always looking for feedback and some insights. Perfect.
I think we can wrap up now.
Sure.
All right. Well, thank you so much
Yeah.
again, and have a lovely evening, all of you. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, everyone. Bye.